This is the first time you've joined us where you know who you'll be running against in November. Is this the campaign you wanted, Tallarico versus Paxton? Is this the opponent you wanted out of this Republican primary?
Well, Ken Paxton embodies the broken political system that we're running against. He is the most corrupt politician in America. 3 years ago tomorrow, he was impeached by his own party for using his public office, his position of public trust, to enrich himself and his donors at our expense. And that is exactly the problem in our politics. It's puppet politicians who serve themselves and their billionaire mega donors instead of serving us. It's why we can't afford anything. It's why we can't get ahead no matter how hard we work. The system is rigged by corrupt politicians like Ken Paxton. And so it's going to be all of us. It's going to be Democrats, independents, and Republicans. It's going to be urban Texans, rural Texans, suburban Texans. It's going to be all of us coming together, the people versus Ken Paxton.
Let's listen to what Ken Paxton had to say about you tonight. And I have to tell you, I don't know if you've heard this already, but he spent a good deal of his victory speech tonight talking just about you. Here's what he had to say about you.
My opponent is the most extreme radical the Democrats have ever nominated. He's even running a vegan campaign, whatever that is. He goes by a few names that you may all have heard of. Some people know him as Tofu Tallarico. Some people call him Six-Gender Jimmy. I've even heard some people call him James Tallarico. And others refer to him simply as Low T Tallarico. But no matter what you call him, let me tell you this. James Tallarico is a threat to everything we hold dear in this state and in this country. He's a threat to our security and our safety. He wants open borders and even said a welcome mat should be at our southern border. He's a threat to our children. He wants boys and girls sports, gender mutilation surgery performed on kids. And when asked what he loved outside of his family and friends, you heard what Brandon Gill said, his first answer was trans kids. That's weird, and that's a radical guy. He's a threat to our prosperity and Texas economy. He said you can't be a Christian if you support the oil and gas industries. He wants to raise your taxes, and he won't do a single thing to lower costs for you and your family. And finally, he's a threat to our very way of life and our values. I mean, he's a vegan who thinks God is non-binary and that there's actually 6 biological sexes. It's hard to imagine someone more radical than that. No matter what he says or how much he raises, the reality is that James Tallarico is going to be nothing more than a Texas-based puppet for Chuck Schumer and the National Democrats.
That is it. That is, as of tonight, the Paxton campaign against you. What is your equal time response to that?
Well, Ken Paxton is morally unfit for office. He'll lie to you with a straight face. He's failed the character test. He's the most corrupt attorney general of our lifetime, and he puts the interests of himself over the laws of Texas. Those aren't my words. Those are the words of Ken Paxton's fellow Republicans. This November, working Texans, Democrats, independents, and Republicans alike are going to come together to defeat the most corrupt politician in America and the broken political system that he represents.
So he's going after you in very personal terms. He's calling you, he's got names for you that we just heard. I don't want to repeat some of those. But obviously, he's going to spend a great deal of his time talking about you and transgender issues and children. What do you want Texas voters to understand about that?
Well, this is how puppet politicians like Ken Paxton stay in power. You know, he's spent his entire career selling us out for his donors. And that, I think, is going to be apparent to Texans over the course of this race. And so the only way he's going to hold on to power is through distraction and division. This is the oldest strategy in the world, divide and conquer. They divide us by party, by race, by gender, by religion, by all this culture war stuff. So we don't notice that they're picking our pockets, that they are closing our public schools all over Texas. They are gutting our healthcare, raising our premiums for Texans all over the state. And they are raising taxes on all of us while they cut taxes for themselves. And so I think Texans see through this game. They realize that we're being pitted against each other with these old, tired culture war fights so that corrupt politicians like Ken Paxton can hold on to power and continue to enrich themselves and their billionaire mega donors.
What about Texas voters who want to know from you on this particular issue? Is Ken Paxton telling the truth about you in relation to these issues, especially involving what he was just talking about there, transgender issues involving children?
No, Ken Paxton is clipping comments, taking them out of context to try to paint a picture, trying to paint me as someone I'm not. You know, Ken Paxton has a criminal record. I have a legislative record over 4 terms in the Texas House of Representatives, where I've brought Democrats and Republicans together to pass more than 60 bipartisan bills to cut property taxes, to raise teacher pay, to lower the cost of housing, prescription drugs, and child care across Texas. And I'm going to put that record up against Ken Paxton's criminal record any day of the week, twice on Sunday. I've called out the extremes in both parties, on the right and the left. You know, I've called out Ken Paxton for his blatant illegal corruption, but I also called out President Biden when he failed to secure our southern border. So I'm not interested in going to Washington, D.C. to serve one political party. I'm going to Washington, D.C. to serve the people of Texas. That's the exact opposite of what Ken Paxton does. He serves himself and his billionaire mega donors at the expense of the people of this state.
You just heard Ken Paxton say that you are for open borders. What's your response to that?
I just told you that they were, clipping things that I've said. This is a perfect example because I said our southern border should be like our front porch. There should be a welcome mat and a lock on the door, meaning we can welcome immigrants who want to live the American dream, who want to make us richer and stronger in the process, and secure the border and keep out people who mean to do us harm. We can do both of those things at the same time. It's puppet politicians like Ken Paxton who want to grandstand on this issue of immigration, who want to make people afraid. That's why he's cutting my comments in half, because he wants to paint a picture. He wants to hold on to power despite his career of corruption. So we're going to keep telling the truth over the course of this campaign. And I think Texans will know who's actually fighting for them, who's fighting to lower their costs, who's fighting corruption, and it's not Ken Paxton.
It's very clear that he's going to follow the Donald Trump model in so many ways, including, by the way, his own ethical behavior, according to the public record. But you're going to be subjected to a number of nasty names. And we just heard a couple of them there that he tried out tonight. He'll be trying out more of those. And I'm sure people out there around the country are wondering, how are you going to counter that? How are you going to fight back against that? Because they've seen Donald Trump use that kind of technique successfully, especially in states with a lot of Republican voters. And as we know, Texas is one of those states with a lot of Republican voters who apparently respond to that kind of name calling and insult.
Well, I've gone to every corner of Texas already over the course of this campaign, from Beaumont to El Paso, from Amarillo to Brownsville, and everywhere in between. And I can't tell you the number of people who come up to me at the end of these events and whisper, "I'm not a Democrat," like they're in the witness protection program, including a lot of people who voted for President Trump in 2024. They voted for him because they thought he was going to lower costs. They thought he was going to drain the swamp. They thought he was going to end the forever wars. They thought he was going to release the Epstein files. But just 1 year into this administration, they've seen him do the exact opposite. They've seen him raise prices through his crazy tariffs. They've seen him grow the swamp with unprecedented corruption. They've seen him start new forever wars, including the latest war in Iran. And they saw him do everything to prevent the release of the Epstein files. And so a lot of the president's supporters in Texas are feeling disillusioned. They're feeling disillusioned with this extremism and this corruption that is embodied by politicians like Ken Paxton. And so we have a real opportunity to build a big coalition of Democrats, independents, and Republicans who are fed up with this extremism and this corruption. That's exactly how I flipped a Trump district in Williamson County, Texas, when I first got elected to the state house. It was by building that big coalition, that big tent. And this politics of name calling, of trolling and owning, that politics has a record low approval rating in this country, including in Texas. Those nicknames don't lower your grocery bills. They don't lower the price of gas. They don't lower the cost of housing and childcare and prescription drugs and insurance. It doesn't actually improve people's lives. And so I think in this election, what you're going to see is a deep hunger for servant leaders who are actually going to deliver for working Texans, going to make their lives easier and better and less stressful, rather than enriching themselves and their billionaire mega donors.
I want to go to one of the issues you would face as a United States Senator now in the Senate, and that is a vote on a war powers resolution which would limit Donald Trump's ability to continue his war in Iran. How would you vote on that?
I would vote to limit these presidential powers. I would vote to end this disastrous war in Iran as quickly as possible. You know, as a millennial, I saw how military disasters like the Iraq War robbed this nation of young lives, of billions of dollars, and of our moral standing around the world. And I think this administration is making the exact same mistakes in Iran. And so I think we need to bring this war to an end. We got to start lowering the price of gas for working Texans who are already feeling squeezed. And we got to get our foreign policy back to some kind of sanity.